Senior Governance Specialist, United Nations Development Program. Mr. Muhammad Zakaria, Program Director, South Asia Governance Fund, the Asia Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting you our next panel. So, Mr. Miraj Ahmed Chowdhury, the floor is yours.
Thank you. এটা ঠিক আছে, থ্যাংক ইউ। ওইটা আমরা হ্যান্ড ওভার করে নেব। ঠিক আছে। Thank you very much for attending this program. We are still waiting for one of our guests. As soon as she's here, we can start. Thank you for your patience. Just a couple of minutes, please. She's already here.
That's why you're going to sit in over there so you can Yeah, Miraj, I don't know how, but we never crossed this.
This is very unfortunate, no? So you are both are in, how long are you staying?
We are only going tomorrow morning.
I should have invited you to my office. I'm so sorry. But
Yeah, Miraj was also saying that. I have been his friend on LinkedIn for I don't know so many long.
Yeah.
First time today. And that's because some of my work also focuses on digital rights.
Yeah.
Although some cases more, he's a very good friend of mine.
Yeah.
We actually wrote quite a few papers together. And basically we work together a lot.
Yes.
But just like I have audioed him so many times.
Thank you.
With
Yes.
All these digital rights are also mine.
Yes. You know what happened, Kumar? I invited separate people separately in Nepal. I was in Kathmandu, and they all came in the same car. So they are all close friends. This whole civil society groups, they're very close to each other. And
Especially those people who are working in the same field, like we all know each other.
Yeah. Should we start? Sheela Haq.
We are waiting for Ms. Sheela Haq. Ms. Haq, if you're here, please come up on the stage. I believe we've seen her, right?
No, that's fine.
There she is.
Well, we now have our full panel ready. Thank you, everyone, for joining this session. I'm Miraj Ahmed Chowdhury. I work for Digitally Right. Most of our work are related to information ecosystem and digital rights. I briefly worked in journalism, media development, and now in this particular space. and I will be your moderator for this session. Uh, and to be frank, in the previous session, we have learned a lot about how disinformation and misinformation works. It crosses borders and how it really impacts society and how it really creates societal harms. No? So right now in this panel, which is titled Regional Partnership for Advancing Digital Literacy, it touches upon on a broad perspective of digital literacy. So far what we have discussed, what media can do, what fact checkers can do. But I think this is more of a discussion how we can make people more aware of misinformation, disinformation, and digital threats in a whole information ecosystem and make them take informed decisions. I think this is the whole idea of digital literacy in many ways. But before going into detail, let me introduce with our distinguished panel. We have Kumar Lopez, CEO of Sri Lanka Press Institute. And I know Kumar for a long time, and we discussed several things on several issues, particularly related to journalism. And he has been at the forefront of not only media development, but media literacy, but also legal advocacy. Whenever there are bad laws are coming, SLPI played a very central role. You know? So we have Ujjwal Acharya, Director of the Center for Media Research in Nepal. Ujjwal's work not only deals with media and also media development research, but it also intersects with digital rights in many ways, which is very relevant to this particular session as well. We have Sheela Haq, Senior Governance Specialist at the United Nations Development Program, UNDP. I think UNDP has done most extensive work when it comes to media literacy, digital literacy, and disinformation, and engaged a lot of partners in many ways in Bangladesh, including civil society and media as a whole. And we have Mohammad Zakaria, Program Director of at the Asia Foundation and looking after South Asia governance, to be precisely. And we know that Asia Foundation has been working to develop different programmings targeting at regional disinformation and, to be frank, strengthening this community not only in South Asia, but also I think in Southeast Asia as well. So in this context, we have a very high-level profile here who can give us country context, but also regional context in a broader way. So why digital literacy matters? I think most of us in this room are very aware of that. Digital literacy in general sense means it is not about always access to internet and access to tools, but it is also about how you use this technology access in a safer way, in a critical way, and also in an effective way, so that you can unlock your economic opportunities, but also you can protect yourself from social harms, but also you do not be a harm to others, no? So it is always about people. So always digital literacy programs are more broader than media development interventions and a lot of other interventions because of its robustness. So it is robust, number one. It is multifaceted. So it is not that only people, only students, only educational systems or CSOs are involved, but it deals with large number of people because it is about literacy. When it is, the word is literacy, it is large, it is robust. So the funding that requires to address media literacy programs and the emerging threats we are receiving in South Asia in particular, I think it requires a separate discussion and a larger discussion. On that context, I would like to go first to Kumar, because I know you very much. So you have been working in this field for a long time. So given that misinformation, disinformation, and digital threats, it is common everywhere, but the social context is different. What kind of social harm it creates, it is also contextual. So what do you see in Sri Lanka in terms of the harms it creates, the lack of media literacy or digital literacy, and how do you, to be frank, give us a picture of where Sri Lanka is at in terms of not only the challenges, but also the opportunities?
Thank you. Thank you, Miraj, and I want to thank ULAB also for inviting me here, and Asia Foundation for at least starting off with this partnership. I mean, this itself is the initiation and the start to say, like, look, we can work regionally, and we can actually achieve much more and much more synergy. I purposely sat on this seat so that I expected Ujjwal will go first so that, I don't need to talk a lot, but that strategy didn't work, I guess. Okay. So I think just before I start, I just want to, while listening to the other two panels, I also had this thought which came out from Professor Salimullah, who basically said that even the mainstream media, I think we all agree, the mainstream media has also been part of the mis and disinformation and how they have been having narratives and it's been going on. And then Professor Imran said, like, we all have to be fact checkers. Yes, we all have to be fact checkers. And then as we went on to the other panel, like, we also started talking about the key role of fact checkers and how fact checkers are balanced and they are objectively debunking false information. But I want to take one step further, saying that we have academics here, we have professionals, media experts. I was talking to Professor Imran and I was asking the question as to, like, whether we have also lost in the education sector. Is the education sector is also to be blamed for us to talk about this topic today, about media literacy? It's not only in the media sector, it's not only about media, it's not about only the journalism or anything as such, but it's all about, like, we have lost in principle the critical thinking through our education systems, right? Starting from grade 1 all the way up there, we have lost our critical thinking. You talk to the corporates have the same problem, right? Because we don't think critically, right? So it's a challenge, I believe, like, it's with the education sector as well, where we need to work with the education sector. But let's leave that aside because I guess there'll be others to talk about in another forum. So when you talk about challenges, I think one of the biggest challenges that I would also see in Sri Lanka is not so different to what we are facing here. If you talk about the religious issues, the hate speech, women rights issues, etc., and so on, it's the same issues that I would see, but it's the level to which how it goes. If you take the last elections in Sri Lanka, so it's nice to see that there was a change here. We also had a change. I don't know how many other countries are going to go through the change, but it's interesting to see that in our last elections, we did not have that amount of hate speech or religious-based false informations, etc., and so on, because I think people have gone through the misery and then they kind of feel like, look, economy is the issue. So the mandate and the principle on which all the parties, or basically the presidents who went in, they all went with the mandate of economic recovery. That was it, right? But it may not be so for the parliament election, which is there in another 6 more weeks. We'll have the parliament elections because the results indicate like the North and the East went to the opposition. So we might anticipate there'll be more narratives towards the religious or the communal-based things. So the context, I guess, it's for me, it's pretty much the same throughout. So that's where I feel like there is so much of synergy that we can get in. The other challenge I would see is, like, we spoke about fact-checking, but can fact-checkers alone be trusted? The scenario in Sri Lanka, what we find is sometimes we have fact-checking units that are also kind of creating narratives, right? And it creates a situation and makes you ask a question whether the fact-checkers need to be fact-checked as well, right? So we say the mainstream media is fact-checked, the journalists are fact-checked, and now we are looking at, would there be a situation where we need to fact-check the fact-checkers, right? So the best answer is, again, going back to what Professor Imran said, I guess we all agree, is to build that critical thinking and media literacy, and that is where we are here. So the ways in which we have looked at options is we already have a program that's been, which actually started with the Asia Foundation, and now we are working with another USAID program. So by the end of next year, we are looking at having at least 2,000 children in school, right, go through the basic awareness and the understanding of what critical literacy is. Because what we found was, like 2 years ago when we reviewed the syllabus of the school curricula, we found that we didn't have enough material on mis and disinformation under the current trend, under the current digital sphere. And then we went and spoke to the Ministry of Education, we spoke to the unit that was revising the syllabus, and we basically got their blessings, and they said, yes, it's something that is needed. So now we do a 6-hour program in all the schools, at least 30 schools for until next year, on building digital media literacy and understanding false information. That's one of the steps that we have taken, and I think that's very, very important. And that thought comes from the Finnish example. So I was listening to the Finnish, I think one of the ministers, where he was basically saying in Finland, 75% of the time, false information does not penetrate the public. And the reason for that is the education system. The education system is so good that whether you are in the engineering stream or the art stream or in the media stream, you have to go through media literacy subjects so that you understand how media works, right? So we just took that idea off and we started working with our school. So that's something that we're doing. We're doing the same thing with the universities, talking to the university kids who are doing media as well as the others. And we're also doing training of teachers, right? Because I guess we all agree, like, the funding comes to a cease at some point in time. And the best way of sustaining is our teachers. Teachers are going to be in the school. So we are training around, say, closer to about 400 to 600 teachers this year who would be teaching at different grades, not only in media, in different grades, because we feel even a mathematics teacher should know what media literacy is, because that person can just read something off the YouTube and come and teach something, right? So we have changed our strategy to say, like, let's get the teachers so that that is much more sustainable, because they can also go and teach. And besides that, we are also working with social media campaigns. We are also partnered with newsrooms to carry the media literacy campaigns. The social media campaign, again, is a struggle, because most of the time you find, like, the algorithms also play a key role in regard to which person it reaches. Those challenges are there. So I think these are the mixed challenges and the opportunities that we have in Sri Lanka.
Thank you. Kumar, I'll come back to you. I would like to go to Ujjwal now to give us an idea of, like, what you are doing in Nepal, and to be frank, what kind of challenges you are facing in terms of addressing this particular concern.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the inviting me. Thank you, my fellow panelists, to be here. So I'll start with what CMR-Nepal is doing on this combating misinformation, right? We started off, CMR-Nepal started off just as a media research institute. And then we found out that media people do not have enough information, enough knowledge about misinformation. We have to go into that field. Once we are there, we say, like, okay, now we can do a little bit of awareness raising with journalists, but then we also need some kind of fact checking. Then we started off a fact checking initiative called Nepal Fact Check, which is an IFCN signatory. And then when we are doing work there, we also found out that those young people, to whom a lot of time we all blame for excessively using mobiles, for not having this knowledge about what to share, what not to share, for not reading newspapers or books, right? But we kind of, I don't know, in other contexts, it may be true in other contexts as well, but in Nepal's context, we don't tell them what to do. We just tell them, you are doing this thing, which is not right. We just criticize them, but we don't tell them what to do. So we thought, like, okay, we'll start something on media and information literacy. And we started off with a national seminar trying to understand what stakeholders think about in 2017 and 18. Then we thought we need to go to the young people, we need to go to the schools, but we need a different approach. Because every time, as a civil society organization, as an expert, I can't go to the all school. So we started this new initiative, we call it MIL initiative, MIL initiative. You can search hashtag MIL initiative, you will see a lot of photos of us doing program. So what we did is we trained teachers. Not like one teacher from one school. We bring them to a 2-day TOT workshop. We teach them what relevant topics around media and information literacy, digital literacy, misinformation, disinformation, internet safety, digital security, even what is internet crimes, misuse, all sort of stuff that's important. Internet addiction, how to do digital detox. And then we give them a micro grant, which is not much, which is around 10,000 rupees. That's almost like a little bit less than 1,000 taka. 10,000 taka to do at least one workshop with their student at the school outside the classroom setting. So we define outside the classroom setting as either do it in a library or on a ground or on a rooftop, anywhere but not in a class. So that if you have absolutely no place, you want to do it in a class, make sure that you mix at least 2 or 3 classes together to do this workshop with them. 1 hour workshop on the topic you chose, and we give teachers a resource book that they can read. We give the teachers, we also have a book, handbook, meant for the youth. It's a very picturesque book. It has 12 topics, and on each topic it has a very short 1 paragraph, 2 paragraph introduction. Then there is 2 sections, what you can do, what you should not do. So we ask them to distribute it to the student. And as a proof for us, because we have given them 1 micro grant to do that workshop, as a proof of that, we ask them to ask all the students to hold that book and take a photo and send it back to us. Our idea around that is that since we can't go there always, we want to prepare a teacher as a focal person who knows about media and information literacy, who knows about digital literacy, and he can become a focal person there if any further problem arises later on. And also that he will also be confident because he has connection with us. If there is anything that comes up to him that he cannot immediately resolve or immediately suggest, he can always consult with us. So throughout Nepal, we have done that training to 140 teachers. Some of them, not all of them, some of them are funded by the Asia Foundation, some of them are funded by Open Society Foundation. I'm saying that because we can try to embed that into all the other projects that we do, right? So in some places we went for some other program. Let's say we went there to do a multi-stakeholder discussion on information manipulation under a IRI project. Then since we are there, and since the hotel is booked, there is food, everything, we invite teachers there, 10 to 12 teachers. We put them on a TOT workshop and do like that. So why we are doing this is also because it's relevant to what Kumar said. In our school curriculum or in our university curriculum, probably true for whole South Asia, there is nothing on media and information literacy. We do not have the history of integrating critical thinking, integrating media and information literacy in our curriculum. That's true for, I think, South Asia. In Nepal also it's true. So when this problem of misinformation, disinformation, even the internet, the use and misuse of internet, all this came through, all of a sudden we have a whole lot of population who doesn't know how to do the correct thing on it, who doesn't know how to properly navigate this landscape, this situation. So the biggest challenge for all of us, I think it's true for South Asia and also for Nepal, is that how to make sure that at least some elements of media and information literacy, at least some elements of critical thinking, maybe just one thing that I should not trust every information that I receive. Just that one line of thinking to all the population, because they never had before, nobody had told them, this is what you should be doing. So that I see as a biggest challenge.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ujjwal. I would like to go to Sheela Haq right now, because you have been working on this space particularly for a long time and engaging with different stakeholders in a larger way. And what we have learned from Kumar and Ujjwal is that they are trying to approach educational system to create a greater knowledge about media literacy, and at least so that people can identify or at least question information and try to understand what is right or wrong. But from Bangladesh point of view, because you are really deeply invested in this space, what are the challenges do you see in terms of, but not only challenges, but what are also the successes that you have achieved, you think, through your programs and through the society you are engaged with, not only through programs, of course?
Thank you. Foremostly, my late coming to the stage and disappearance has nothing to do with disinformation. It's my watch didn't work, so that's the only sort of the fact. So that's the fact. So there is no misinformation, disinformation into that. But again, coming to the whole crust of the discussion today, I think I'll start with a bit of looking back and self-reflection. All of us sitting in this room, I think it's very important, and I hope this disinformation, misinformation, and hate speech doesn't become just a buzzword for all of us. I think that we have a tendency that we start using it, and at one point we keep on using it but don't understand why we are using it. So I think that's a very important lesson learned. Over the last 1.5 years, we have investing on this, learning through the process. I think it's very important that we learn what we are all doing in each of our own space. I think that your question of what we are doing in Bangladesh, what was our investment, and scope and challenges, I'll sort of say the challenge is something is very important for us because globally, UNDP is working on information integrity is very important for us. As you know, that globally, we have seen almost 40+ elections across the globe from last year and this year as well. So this is something that we have been working very closely with our different country offices. And similarly, we have also worked in 2014 before elections. We have not engaged in the elections so far, but we were looking into that space. And I think this is very important when the challenges, like, when you talk about fact checkers, is it the only responsibility of the fact checkers to check the facts and debunk? It's impossible because how far and how you're going to debunk those information which are true and false. And I think that's very important as we have seen how hate speech is also integrated into this whole scenario as well. So the challenge is that how we all come together and to understand how we address the misinformation and disinformation, which is not in Bangladesh, I think it's global, and is also transboundary in nature. I think that's very important when you talk about this whole landscape and the ecosystem of misinformation and disinformation. So the challenges is also like, when it is state-sponsored, when it is also sponsored by different groups. So how do you really counter it? How do you address it? So by having a very small pilot initiative last year, what we also sort of realized that it's very important to have a coalition. It's very important. It's different stakeholders coming together and trying to understand how to really, as a group, and not as a siloed approach, that we can look into the whole ecosystem of information pollution. That's very important. We also had been working very closely with the media groups, both electronic and print media, and especially with the editors, because that's one of the most important stakeholders. And I think that's also commitment from all of us that, how far we're going to really say that, we won't be the person who would be responsible for spreading the facts, which are really not a fact. So I think that's very important. Fact checkers, we have been working with fact checkers. I think there's a challenge of the fact checkers network. One of the challenges that the amount of disinformation, misinformation that they address, and the number of real fact checkers in Bangladesh, I think the ratio is very limited, but I think it's not the number that matters. It's also important, like how you build your capacity. Everybody cannot be a fact checker. I cannot be a fact checker. This is not my forte. But what I can be able to do is to be a part of the process to understand how we can help each other. I think that's very important. However, how much institution that we establish doesn't matter. I think that's important is that my integrity of in involving in this subject matter is very important. I think that's where I think there's a lot of scope though it's in Bangladesh, but I think that with your permission, I'll also talk about bit of the transboundary. I think that's very important because when you talk about social media does not stay and they don't understand state and boundaries, right? The boundary doesn't work. So I think that's very important, having a cross-transboundary discussion among different networks. We have Nepal and Sri Lanka with us. We have also been working with few other networks. We have global networks that we are also linking with fact checkers. I won't say build capacity because I think in fact checkers in Bangladesh have a lot of their own capacity, but sharing knowledge is also always important, and always the more knowledge you gather, the more you can sort of tackle those information. I think that's very important. One of the discussion we are having beginning of this year is also, I think, AI. Artificial intelligence has become a big challenge. here as well as globally as well. So how would you ensure that, as we have seen before the election in 2024, and on other occasions as well. So it's very important how we bring in the whole discussion on the AI when you talk about digital harm. So I think this is something that we have also picked up, and this is a discussion we are having this year, where different representatives under the BIMSTEC framework were here and asking like how we can share knowledge when we see there is a transboundary issues which are impacting, as we have seen in the past, and also I'm sure that we are picking it up, like, you know, the diplomatic relationship, the different sort of other data set that we have been exchanging. We have seen the religious festibility that has over the years impacted both the countries across this region. We have seen the issue on the Rohingya response as well, how hate speech and disinformation is also sort of impacting. So I think this is very important when you talk about those perspectives as well. So I'm not sure whether we have time to come back, but I think that there are some areas that we might want to sort of look forward. Thank you.
I'm sure I will circle back. I go to Zakaria bhai right now. So I would like to ask you about like regionality of the problem, the cross-borderness of the problems. No? So if you see regionality, most of the time digital literacy discussions only evolves around misinformation, disinformation, particularly here because of the very nature of the program. But it is quite broad. I will go into that questions as well. But Zakaria, what kind of synergies and what kind of similarities in terms of harms and in terms of initiatives do you see in this region, if you say South Asia, because you are working in this space?
Thank you, Miraj bhai. Thank you very much. I think when we started this initiative during COVID time, and at that time, we, partners, we supported a lot of initiatives on improving digital literacy, improving other literacy as well. And at that time, basically our partners take a whole lot of society approach, and through that support, our partners, they worked with youth groups, they work with students, elected representatives, academia, and through that journey, a couple of our initiatives was to build capacity of public university, because we thought that if this kind of digital literacy issues can be built through public university, then it will sustain. And besides that, couple of initiatives was with youth, and it was in the sub-national level. So through that youth initiative, there was a series of long-term capacity building program, and through that capacity building program, they were learned about these digital literacy, fact-checking, and how to debunk misinformation. And through that process, they also worked with local, their community, their guardian, local administration, so that if there is any issue, any social issue, any political issue, it can be tackled in a comprehensive way. And also during that time, we also worked with lots of capacity building of journalist community, because mainstream media, definitely there is a lack of capacity on debunking misinformation, and also with the individual journalist and individual media, they also lack of this kind of knowledge support. So through our partners, we supported a lot of those initiatives, and we have been continuing those. So this is one part of the story. But when we are facing these kind of challenges, and when we are discussing with our colleagues across the region, then we found that definitely it is not the case. And always this kind of misinformation issues, initiatives, it travels across the region. One time it appears in a country, and what was discussed today morning, that it was debunked in a particular way, but with another time, with another trend, it takes another different story, different face, and lots of issues, social chaos and violence also take place. So in our second phase, we thought that we can extend this initiative. We can collaborate more with our like-minded partners across the region, academia, and also practitioner. So, through ULAB and through CMR and SLPI, we thought that regional research can be taken. Through that, the pattern of misinformation and the journey and the other socio-political issues, how it appears, how it takes place, that can be explored. So after a lot of discussion and brainstorming, finally we thought that, and if there is a regional collaboration, if there is a regional connectivity, and there is a regional collaboration where citizens, where a community, and where researchers can share their experience, can share their knowledge, that can be more effective, and that can be more efficient as well. And based on that initiative and based on that understanding, finally we were able to connect our partners across the region, and this collaborative discussion is taking place here today. But definitely, this is not sufficient, and this is not the whole thing. But what we can at least claim that this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning across the region. What we started during COVID time, and even we also experienced lots of misinformation news and events and consequences we started experiencing during COVID time, and even the recent political transition in Bangladesh, what we still experiencing, and also the consequences and the attachment of and the prevalence of this misinformation we are also experiencing. This is enormous, and this is huge. And not only that, this is only coming from or emerging from here, but we are also experiencing what our in the second session today, we also learned from our friends and colleagues from India. Lots of things are coming from there. And also, it is also this kind of collaboration, this kind of networking effort also helping our journalist community, our fact-checking community to connect, to share, and to learn from them where it is sourcing and how to counter those initiatives. So definitely, this kind of initiative, what we were started in a country-to-country basis, in a partner-to-partner basis. But when it is coming together, when we can share our experiences, our learning, our journey, definitely it will help to counter this misinformation and disinformation in a better way.
Thank you, Zakaria bhai. I think we had this first round of discussion to understand what is going on in Iran. No? So I think there is now room for more critical discussion. No? So for example, if we take these two tracks separately, for example, tackling disinformation, no? So what fact-checking organizations, research organizations are doing, no? So they come in and they say, this is true, this is false. The literacy part is when people read these stories, they have more understanding of what is wrong, what is right. This is tackling disinformation. But we all understand fact-checking is not the only way, it is one way. There is algorithmic part of it. That is where comes like platform accountability issues. How do you tackle misinformation, disinformation, hate speech in a systematic way? So these are larger discussions. But as we are talking about digital literacy, I want to focus more on empowering people, because that is the heart of it, so that they can at least keep themselves safe, and also they can discern right from wrong. No? So people are more empowered in that sense. In a lot of schools, when we talk about information and media literacy and also digital literacy, the conventional wisdom and discussions evolves around misinformation and disinformation, which is the critical thinking part of it, mostly. But there is digital threats part of it, because I think technology is changing and new threats are evolving. For example, you see a reel on Facebook or in other platform, then you see there is a link that is directing you to a Telegram group where you are seeing technology-facilitated gender-based harassment, no? Gender harassment or violence, like pornographies and others. You can see there are very interesting, fun videos coming from Vietnam, but in Hindi or Bangla language, creating automatedly, and sharing content with a link that is taking you to a scam. No, these are digital threats. I think there is literacy part of it as well. But often we also miss the, to be frank, its effectiveness part. Even if you have right information, can you use it effectively? That is also another part of digital literacy programs. So my question, any of you can address that. I don't want to point gun to anyone's head, to be frank, but do our media literacy or digital literacy programs add this holistically? Because when it comes to disinformation, it is about true and false, often, and misleading, no? But when it comes to hate speech, it is also associated with freedom of expression. You need to categorically decide, to some extent, it is decided by what is harm, no? Is there any imminent harm? If it is against hate speech against a public official, should it be considered all right? I think these are nuanced educations. This is not as simple as misinformation and disinformation, no? And threats is threats, like fraud. These are all part of the social construct. And this is nothing new. It is that technology only amplifies it to a greater extent. So do our programs and efforts really address this holistically? And do you see any needs in this space to revisit what we are doing, how we are doing it, and what could be done better? I'm sorry, anyone can answer it, please.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you have said. There is most of the time there is a very thin line that we are working on. Hate speech versus freedom of expression, media freedom versus legislation on misinformation, right? So there are very thin lines. But what I feel and what we feel in Nepal is that before trading on all these issues, before we go there, let's step back. Let's step back and think whether or not the people who are doing what we think is not right, do they know that they are doing it wrong, right? So our approach in Nepal is not to go to that step, but to step back and let people know what's right and what's wrong first, right? Just give them the knowledge. And once the knowledge, what we feel is if people know, a lot of people know, because through this digital literacy program, we're trying to reach youth who definitely do not have the knowledge that older people have from experience, right? They are still raw mind. They are still trying to navigate the realities of the world. So first, let them understand what is right and what is wrong and why. Why part is also important. So our digital literacy program actually have 4 parts. So first part of it is very traditional media and information literacy. What is media? How to navigate media? How media content are produced? What happens when you get the information? Why certain information are presented in certain way, right? So the first part only deals with that. When it comes to the second part is combating misinformation. So then we have obviously around 1/4 of the part is about the misinformation. Then third thing will go is into digital safety, how to use this technology and how to use that technology correctly in a safe way. So privacy things, all these sort of stuff. And the third part, we talk about the cyber abuses, online abuses that can happen, digital abuses that they can be victim or they can somehow do it on other. Once they know, we feel that a lot of majority of them will stop doing it. And then we have the population already a lot less than it is. And if they are doing it, then we can look into all these other matters, including the legislation. But because now we have the population who are doing the wrong things, after knowing that they are doing it wrong. And it feels in a way, it feels safe to do if there is any kind of, let's say, I won't say punishment, but if there is any way that we can check on them, then it feels right. Otherwise, if youths are, let's say, if a 14-year girl or a 15-year boy is doing something by not knowing that he is doing it wrong, he is still innocent, right? So we don't want to kind of like put a pressure on him. There are so many examples that we came across in Nepal when we went to the training.
So
right?
you think as kind of the beginning of the process, we should mature at some point, no?
Yeah, that's really important, I think, because when we look into all these problems that is arising from not only from the misinformation, but also because let's say technology has brought onto us, right? We look into the problem, a lot of problem, especially in our part of the world, a lot of these problems actually exist because the people, the larger number of people do not know how to use that technology correctly, or the thing that they are doing is not correct. Once they know that, I hope that it will.
I am told that we have more or less 5 minutes or so, is it? If that is the case, Kumar, so if we see kind of opportunities of like going back to the heart of this session, like partnerships, regionality. So what does this partnership look like to you in a short term? I don't want to go in a long term. So how do you see this partnership? Like if you visualize a partnership on tackling digital literacy in a larger way, what kind of partnership, regional partnership do you see? So.
Okay, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think partnership should not be built based on funding.
Yeah.
Partnership should be genuine enough to say, like, I'm coming here for a cause and objective. Most of the time, our partnerships fail because we have brought in through a structured mechanism of somebody sponsored somebody. See, tomorrow, we can still have this partnership and this same discussion because we have tools. We did this during COVID, right? Virtually. We had conferences, mega events on COVID. And I think something else that I also want to mention here is like, I mean, this is not a T20 game. This is a test match, right? And it has become a test match because if we had all the time, probably we would have tackled it. Our COVID did not make. COVID actually brought the context into a different thing because the laggards actually adopted technology. And that has put us into problems. So I believe like, I think we can still build on it. We can widen it. And through coalition, I think we can achieve. One last point. You mentioned about tackling the platforms. So I was at the EU election observers meeting just before I came. And the chief observer, I made the same point too. And she basically said, in Europe, they are able to achieve because of that coalition, togetherness. So I guess sometimes the Sri Lankan market size may not be big enough to influence Meta or anybody. But if Nepal, us, Bangladesh, everybody comes together and we say like, look, we will all do it, then I think we should bring them to the board.
So in terms of, I think, let's go beyond that, because you raised this issue of emerging threats like AI and others. So how do you think we can leverage UNDP's, to be frank, broader vision and support these regional groups in understanding these emerging threats and work collectively, not necessarily with funding, but more connections, more learning from each other? So.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. But before that, very quickly, on the digital harm, I think that do no harm policy is very important. And we look at from the human rights approach. I think that's very important when we're tackling the whole digital harm issue. Just very quickly, also that those stakeholders, as we say, that sometimes the digital illiteracy is a challenge. We also work with the migrant workers. So sometimes migrant workers become a victim of different issues because on the issue of illiteracy, and what we are clicking, as you are saying, is very important. I think that's about those what we are doing. I think that the regional cooperation and the partnership, UNDP, of course, we work in 172 countries. We work with different regions. So having a more strategic coalition, as we are doing right now in Bangladesh on the information integrity, we have initiated from last year, and we'll be sitting soon. I think that could be easily sort of go beyond the boundaries as well. That I think UNDP can bring those knowledge. We also have an I-Verify platform that we use in different other countries, especially for the Global South. We'll be happy to share those information with the network if it is needed. So I think those are the tools and techniques that we are using in different countries. We can bring those good practices and learnings as well, and also looking into the whole fact checkers as a community, how we can do community practice and share our thoughts and process on that. But I think this is something, as I agree with our Sri Lankan colleagues and Nepali colleagues as well, that is not funding, is the initiative. I think the reason that we are all here in this room, because we believe that as a group that we can raise those voices. It cannot be tackled in silos. Yeah. So I think that's very important. Thank you.
So, Zakaria bhai, I want to add, like, for example, when we talk about from a middle class male point of view in every society, the problems are often vague, no? So, for example, when we are talking about hate speech, when we are talking about religious bigotry or anything that harms people, the impact on marginalized and minority communities are disproportionately high. So it is not only disproportionately high in terms of partnership, that the level of harm that is created on these groups, let it be religious and other ethnic groups, but the experience is same. No? So the trauma, I think, how could these collective initiatives, to be frank, address these issues more holistically, more regionally? What do you think? And personally, but also organizationally.
Yeah. Thank you. This is the trauma on the minority groups and the vulnerable groups. It is always the responsibility of the majority groups. We are here in terms of minority groups. It is responsibility of us how we perceive them and how we also side with them in this kind of trauma, and how to safeguarding themselves and how to ensure their rights. So even through a regional perspective, through a broader coalition, we can also learn from our colleagues and from our neighboring countries how they settle and how they deal this kind of issues. And this kind of do no harm approach we need to follow, and the best practices, how they are dealing with this, and the research program and evidence we also need to collect to deal with these issues. And at the same time, the beauty of this regional perspective and the collaboration is that we can support this initiative and how to be with them, how to besides with them in this kind of difficult situation that we can strengthen and that we can leverage. And along with that, the political system of a particular country or of the countries across the region, if the political system is open and if the political system is non-violent and if there is a space in this whole kind of discussion, then we can better connect with each other and we can be supportive to each other as well.
And probably in any next forum like this, we can have a panel with them as well. So no, I think this is one way. But please let me end this discussion here. I beg apology to the audience because we started at 3:15, and at 1 hour idea, I thought that it will be 4:15, and I can have 20 minutes audience discussion as well. If I need to conclude, Shubhan Bhai, I can conclude. We're having tea, please. Let's have tea and continue this discussion. Thank you for being here. It has been a wonderful discussion. Thank you, distinguished panel, but also thank you, distinguished guests. Thank you very much.
But kindly stay on the stage, please. A very thoughtful session. Our sincere thanks to the panel moderator and the panelists. And as a token of appreciation, we would like to hand over crest to the moderator and the panelists. And to do the honor, may I invite Mr. Qazi Faisal bin Shiraz up on the stage, please. Thank you. Our thanks go to, in no particular order, Mr. Kumar Lopez, Mr. Ujjwal Acharya, a bit more energy in the clapping, please. Miss Sheela Haq. And Mr. Zakaria. And of course, our moderator, Mr. Miraj Chowdhury. Can we also all pose for a group photo after this? Professor Shuman, if you kindly join. So that's our esteemed panel for our third session today. It was a wonderful, wonderful panel discussion. We all enjoyed. Thank you very much. And by looking at most of you, we know that we need caffeine in our system. So let's go for a tea break for 15 minutes. And after the nice coffee and tea break, we will have our fourth session, which is the last session for today. Thank you, everybody.